Hey, it's Mack with PriceActionTradingSystem.com. It's Monday, it's August 18th. This will be our chart lesson for today. It's going to be quick and simple today. There's just not much going on. This is about it's really been all uphill till about 11 o'clock, but there just wasn't any move. We had one good move this morning, and the rest of it's just been choppy. And a lot of times these kind of trends like this don't look strong, but they just keep going and going and going. But that wasn't the case today. We found this resistance at 1968, and we just couldn't penetrate it today. And we never really sold off and went lower. Nobody really wants to sell it, but nobody wanted to buy it at this price either. So we just kind of been hung in this little trading range. This line is probably a little bit higher than what I have it here. I'd probably move it up to about right there. I think you get the most touches. And just nothing happening. So this is going to be pretty quick and easy. The first trade I saw, we had this little, what looked like a little bit of a trading range or a correction, and we had this failed break lower. It was right off what I perceived to be the trend line, so I really liked it, but it was a trap. It was that little failed break lower that it looked real bearish, and it reverses, and the odds are we're going higher. It did pull back again, and it gives you a second entry counting off this side. There's your first leg up, and then so there goes your second one or your second entry. And it's a nice reversal bar this time. So you could either add on here if you weren't out of this one yet, depending on how you entered it. And if you weren't in yet, you could enter here. But this was the trade of the day, straight up to the other side. And where does it find resistance? Right at the other side. If you were using that for a target, it continued to work a little bit higher. But, generally I'm going to exit when it gets to the other side. And that is generally going to give you what you want. Then there's a second entry long here. Notice the first move, and then it went higher, and then it turned down, and it broke lower, and then reversed and went out the top side. The only thing I would say here is that I would make sure I'd wait for that to break higher, and then I would only enter with a limit order with room to get out here. And so you had to get in way back here. So if you got filled, that's great. If you didn't, I think you just have to pass that one. We're not quite back to the EMA. We're not back to the other side of the trend line. It is a second entry, but it's just kind of risky. Notice we made a new high then you get a first entry pullback, and you get a second entry long here. This was a pretty good setup. Nice move up, easy scalp. And, I was looking for this measured leg at that point. But at the same time, we'd been up so close to the upper side that you had to be leery about a measured leg. And you can see we didn't quite get there. We came up a couple of ticks short by the time it started selling off. But that's what I would be using for a target if you were hanging on to anything up through here. Until we couldn't go higher than broke and failed. Then it was obvious we were just going to spend the rest of the day, it looked like, in this trading range here. But this was not a bad setup. It's a two-legged pullback to the EMA, typical of what you usually get. You might have waited on this bar and waited on it to break and then tried to use a limit order. Although the break higher occurred here, that was really your trigger for your second entry. And then this thing pulls back and it bounces here. Notice that it tried to go lower once, twice, and you made that little double bottom, and then it kind of fails and breaks. There's a first entry, then there's a correction. And so this is like a second entry, but the only way I would recommend getting in this one is if you can get in way back here, again, enough before you could get out before this high, because this thing is really, it's time for it to come back to the other side by now. It really struggles to get back there. But that was the last trade I saw, unless you're going to risk a short up here, which I think it's too risky to do that. And because nothing's closed below the EMA yet at this point. But look at all that overlap. Odds are it's going to break out here and fail. And there's no way you could get a break higher and it back up enough to get into this one. You can see that. So I think you have to let that one just go. And I don't see anything else that's worth taking. This was a little bit tempting. here if you were still trading, but it's so late in the day. And again, there's a whole bunch of bars stacked up. Everything has been below the EMA. Um, I think you got to wait on a second entry, and you hadn't got that yet. It looks like it's tried to set up a few times over here, but you hadn't got a second entry yet. So there's not one to take yet. So that's it. And there's just not much else you can say about today. I only see 3 trades that are just, that I really like. There's a couple more here that are, iffy if you played it just right with a limit order, if you could get it filled. But other than that, and this is a spiking channel. Notice we gapped up or spike, and it's a spike up, and then it goes into this channel. So, I almost wonder, looking at it after the fact, if this is not your midline, and this is the lower side of it, or maybe even a little lower down here, like so, and your midline's more in here. That looks more realistic to me. You can see that, and this may be just a tad higher. And so after the fact, I believe that to be the setup. Earlier I had it like this, and somebody asked me if they saw a midline in there, and there's a possibility that there is. It doesn't fit as nicely. It does look like there's one there, so some people saw it that way for sure, but I believe in the end it was more like this. And we'll see if we bounce off of here or not. There's still 35 minutes or so left in the trading day. But that's what I believe it to be in the end, right there. Because it's where it started to bounce, and then notice how it's getting into this side of it too many times and still going higher. So that leads me to believe that maybe there's the other side is down here somewhere. So we'll see what ends up happening. It's so late in the day that, this line may not show any bounce at all now, but that's what I saw today. And again, just not much else to say about it. It looked like it was going to be one of those days. And a lot of times you'll see these days where prices don't just rocket off, but they constantly make higher highs and higher lows, but it just keeps going and going and going. And it doesn't look like it, but those are strong trends. And this one had that look to it, but the gap is a little suspect because generally those gaps are filled pretty good, a lot of times on the same day. It just didn't take off up here. It was continuing to kind of work higher, but it was more flat than it was to the upside. And you can see how the EMA finally flattened out there. So it just didn't, even though it had that look that this might be a strong trend day, it just didn't have that feel about it, especially the way the market's kind of gotten hung up here lately and then sold off afterwards. So I was a little bit leery of this, and it was a good thing because it kept going breaking higher, but it never really, none of those would have been good trades or good setups, or even probably could have gotten out of them. So you had to be real leery of it and suspect of it. So but that's about it for today. Nothing else I can add to it. I'm just trying to think if there's anything else that's worth mentioning. I just don't see anything. It's just one of those slow days where not much happening, and we'll see what tomorrow brings. It may be slow and choppy again tomorrow, but we'll see. But I'm going to wrap it up for today. We'll be back to do it again tomorrow. This is Mack with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.